Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. What would you do if the mother of the man you love didn't oppose your relationship, but silently tested you instead? Could you face challenges you weren't prepared for? Would your quiet strength be enough to win her heart? And when no one is watching, would you still do the right thing? Today, we follow the story of Tu Diep, a woman with no title, no fortune, but a heart that refuses to break. And James's mother, a woman who believes that love must be proven in silence. This isn't just a love story. It's a test of character, of dignity, and of the kind of courage that doesn't shout, but endures. So stay with us until the very end, because the final moment might just change everything. And if you love emotional, meaningful stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000 followers, and your support means the world. Let the story begin. Tu Diep had never known ease. Her life was a quiet struggle, a series of uncelebrated victories against loneliness, failure, and the weight of a past that never fully faded. She had survived a broken marriage, not with bitterness, but with a calm acceptance that some storms arrive only to teach us how to stand. She owned little, but carried with her things far more valuable: grace, endurance, and a heart still capable of kindness. There were no degrees framed on her wall, no luxurious surname to soften her path. But what she did have was something rare, an inner stillness that remained unshaken, even when the world turned cold. James, by contrast, was a man the world called remarkable. A CEO of clarity and ambition, he walked through rooms like they belonged to him. He had options, expectations, and a future shaped by structure and power. Yet it wasn't the polished that drew him, it was the quiet. In Tu Diep, he saw something the world often missed. Not glamour, not status, but strength. The kind forged in silence, the kind that did not need applause to be real. Her presence didn't demand attention, it offered refuge. They met not through circumstance, but through a quiet convergence of two very different lives. There were no sweeping gestures, no bold confessions, just a look, a pause, and something unspoken that settled in the space between them. It wasn't lightning, it was rain, soft, steady, and exactly what barren ground needs to bloom. Sometimes the beginning of everything sounds like silence. James's mother had always been a woman of quiet calculation, a guardian of tradition, a keeper of standards. She didn't raise her voice to be heard. Her silence carried more weight than words. When James brought Tu Diep into their world, she said nothing in protest. But silence, as Tu Diep would learn, was not absence, it was observation. Though polite, the mother's eyes lingered a bit too long on Tu Diep's simple dress, her calloused hands, her past that was too ordinary for the family's carefully curated legacy. It wasn't judgment, it was fear. Fear that this gentle woman, forged in hardship, might not endure the world of glass walls and fragile reputations. She didn't wish to break them apart. On the contrary, she saw the light in her son's eyes, softer now, fuller, and she wanted to protect it. But love alone, she believed, could not weather the storms of difference. So, she crafted a path, a test, not one of malice but of measure. The test would not be spoken aloud, that would be too crude. Instead, it would unfold slowly, like petals opening to the sun. A charity project here, a business challenge there. Each step designed not to push Tu Diep away, but to reveal what lived quietly within her. Would she break under pressure, or would she rise? She did not want perfection. She wanted proof that this woman could not only love James, but walk beside him through storms with her head held high. And so, the test began, not with commands, but with a quiet invitation. A chance to prove herself not by words, but by the quiet strength of action. The invitation came in the form of grace, a request, not a demand. James's mother asked Tu Diep to help organize a large-scale charity event. Food, clothes, medicine for a village still scarred by floods. It seemed simple, noble. But beneath the kindness lay the first layer of the test. Tu Diep accepted without hesitation, unaware she had stepped into a quiet storm. What followed was not romantic, it was messy. Shipments delayed, volunteers quit halfway. Trucks broke down miles from the site. James, ever the rescuer, offered his hand, but Tu Diep gently declined. "If I was trusted with this," she said softly, "then I must carry it." And so, she did. She stayed up through hollow nights, calling, pleading, negotiating. She found strangers to lift boxes, convinced friends of friends to donate fuel and time. When no drivers came, she climbed into the back of the truck herself, dusty and tired, her hair tied with a rubber band, not pride. She didn't complain. She didn't look around for applause. She worked, quietly, steadily, with a kind of reverence that comes from knowing people were waiting, counting on her. The villagers never knew the chaos behind the order, but James's mother did. From afar, she watched the woman her son loved walk through fire without raising her voice. And in that silence, she heard something undeniable: strength. Not the kind built in boardrooms or learned in schools, but the kind that blooms in the unseen hours, when no one is watching, and giving up would be easy. Tu Diep didn't just complete the task, she carried it like a vow. The second test arrived not as a burden, but as an opportunity, a gesture dressed in kindness. James's mother invited Tu Diep to participate in a small segment of the family business, a modest community program with a limited budget and several suppliers. It was framed as a chance to learn, to contribute. But beneath the surface it was another mirror, held up to see what Tu Diep would reveal under pressure. She hesitated, just briefly. Numbers were never her domain, and business was a world wrapped in unfamiliar language. But she did not retreat. Instead, she stepped forward, slow and deliberate, asking questions with quiet humility and listening more than she spoke. The work was far from glamorous. Contracts, price negotiations, delayed shipments. It felt like a foreign landscape. Then came the real test. One of the suppliers, without warning, canceled their shipment days before the deadline. Panic could have been justified. Giving up would have been understandable. But Tu Diep, with tired eyes and steady hands, remained still. She picked up the phone and made calls long into the evening. She found replacements, bargained with patience, and pieced together a solution with threadbare resources. She didn't boast. She didn't seek recognition. She simply solved the problem, like water finding a way through stone. James's mother observed quietly. This was no longer about business. It was about balance, between fear and courage, between knowing nothing and daring to try. And once again, Tu Diep had not risen through noise or charm. She had risen through stillness, the quiet decision to keep going when every instinct might say stop. Sometimes, true capability whispers rather than roars. It happened when things finally seemed steady. The charity project was moving forward, the community initiative taking shape. For the first time in weeks, Tu Diep allowed herself a breath. But peace, as life often reminds us, is never permanent. A critical shipment, blankets, food, medicine meant for hundreds, went missing due to a logistical mishap. At the same time, one of the key suppliers pulled out of the business program, citing financial losses. It wasn't just a setback, it was a collapse waiting to happen. James was away, another city, another deal. His voice on the phone was concerned but distant. "Do you want me to return?" he asked. But Tu Diep, standing alone in the dim warehouse, shook her head. "I'll manage," she whispered. The warehouse was cold that night. She sat on a stack of unused boxes, surrounded by shadows and the sound of her own heartbeat. Panic circled her like smoke, but she didn't let it inside. Instead, she picked up the phone again. She called local businesses, spoke with small suppliers. Her tone wasn't desperate. It was honest, raw. She offered her sincerity, and it moved people. A trucking company agreed to help in exchange for future partnership visibility. Small shops promised last-minute donations. Bit by bit, she pieced it back together, not with power, but persistence. From a distance, James's mother watched this woman, alone, uncelebrated, put broken things back in place. Not for glory, not for approval, simply because it needed to be done. This wasn't just resilience. This was leadership. Quiet, firm, and profoundly human. The day of the charity distribution arrived beneath a soft, overcast sky. Trucks lined up along the village road, the air filled with a quiet hum of movement. Boxes passed hand to hand, small voices rising in scattered gratitude. Everything, despite all odds, was in place. Tu Diep didn't take the stage. She didn't speak into microphones. Instead, she moved gently among the people, offering words, listening without rush, holding hands a little longer than necessary. To the outside eye, she was just another volunteer. But to those watching closely, she was the pulse behind the entire event. Then, amidst the crowd, it happened. A small child stood alone, shivering, barefoot, holding a thin plastic bag of supplies. His coat was too small, soaked from the morning mist. Without a word, Tu Diep stepped toward him. She removed her own coat, thick, warm, the only layer shielding her from the chill, and gently wrapped it around his shoulders. "You need it more than I do," she whispered. She didn't know anyone was watching, but James's mother was there, just beyond the crowd, standing quietly beneath a pale tree. In that simple gesture, she saw everything she had needed to know. Not just strength, not just competence, but selflessness. Effortless, instinctive and real. The coat wasn't grand, the act wasn't scripted, but it held more truth than any speech. In that moment, the test faded, the doubts dissolved, and in their place, a quiet understanding settled in the mother's heart. This wasn't a woman trying to belong. This was a woman who already did. By the quiet power of who she was, the invitation came days later. Subtle, almost shy. Tea at her home, just the two of them. No pretense, no audience. The living room was quiet, bathed in soft afternoon light, and the scent of jasmine tea drifted between them like a silent offering. James's mother sat with her hands folded, her gaze no longer sharp but thoughtful. Tu Diep, uncertain, sat opposite, still unsure if she had done too much or not enough. You've worked very hard, the mother said softly. The words simple, but their weight unmistakable. Tu Diep smiled, unsure how to respond. She hadn't acted for praise. She hadn't hoped to pass a test. She had only done what she believed was right. There was a long pause, the kind that holds more meaning than any explanation. Then, slowly, the mother spoke again. For years, I believed only those from our world could walk beside us. That understanding was built on background, on class, on pedigree. Her eyes lifted, steady. But watching you changed that. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was healing. Later, when James returned and joined them, his mother turned to him, her voice steadier now. You have chosen well. It wasn't a grand speech, but it was everything. From that day forward, the space between them shifted. No more silent evaluations, no hidden trials. Tu Diep was no longer a question. She was a part of the answer, a part of the family. Because love, as James's mother had learned, is not proven in perfection or privilege. It is revealed in quiet choices, in worn hands offering warmth, and in the courage to show up again and again, without asking for anything in return.
Tu Diep là một người phụ nữ từng trải qua đau thương và thiếu thốn, nhưng luôn giữ được sự kiên cường và lòng nhân hậu khi yêu James, một CEO thành đạt. Cô phải đối mặt với những thử thách và âm thầm từ mẹ anh, không phản đối công khai. Mẹ James tạo ra những chuỗi thử thách để kiểm chứng bản lĩnh thật sự của Tu Diep, từ việc tổ chức sự kiện từ thiện để xử lý dự án kinh doanh. Tu Diep không than vãn, không bỏ cuộc. Đỉnh điểm khoảnh khắc cô cởi áo khoác của một đứa trẻ run rẩy. Hành động khiến mẹ James thật sự cảm động sau tất cả. Tu Diep không chỉ được công nhận mà trở thành một phần của gia đình bằng trái tim chân thành của mình.